This is the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. The Scottish Club Rugby Podcast. With Stuart Cameron and Dale Clancy.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Scottish Club Rugby Podcast, and in the programme this week, Dale Clancy and I will be looking back at the Langholm Sevens and of course the Silver Saturday at Scottish Gas Murrayfield where Hawick retained the Scottish Cup, Watsonians women ran away with the Sarah Beanie Cup, and Falkirk got the better of Lasswade in the League Cup. So lots to look forward to this weekend with the Kelso and Earlston Sevens, also the Premiership Play-off Final between Hawick and Currie, with Hawick going for a treble for the first time since 2002 when they won the Cup, the League and the Border League. So let's begin at the National Stadium then. Look at the Cup final. Twice Hawick raced into healthy leads and twice Edinburgh Accies came back into it and very nearly sneaked the win at the death. Great match though. 32-29 was the final score, and Hugh Brown spoke with Jamie Soule, who ended his rugby career that day in an Edinburgh Accies jersey, and also to victorious Hawick skipper Shawn Muir.
Shawn, you've done it, but it was a close run thing.
Too close in the end. It was pretty nervy the last 20 minutes. Fair play to Accies, look, they were outstanding. They had a real go at us in the last 20 and put us under the cosh, but look, we've dug it out like we've done many times the last few seasons. The character in that squad it's unbelievable. Now absolutely over the moon to go back to back in the Scottish Cup.
You went 17-0 up in the first 20 minutes. It looked as though it was going to be one-way traffic.
We started the game brilliantly. We got into the shape and structure, and we got the big men over the gain line and made the scoring opportunities. But look, we knew we've analysed Accies, the games they've played the last few weeks, and we knew they weren't going away. And like I say, they were by far the better team the last 20 minutes. And look, we have to recover and go again next week for another massive game.
So the double is done. Now it's the treble.
Look, we've got the Border League and the Scottish Cup in the bag, but if I'm being honest, the big one's next week. It's the Premiership. That's the one you play all season for, 19 games including the semi-final, and we want to get that back. That's a big focus in this player's mind, to win the Premiership 2 years in the bounce. So look, we'll enjoy this, we'll have a few beers tonight, but I'll be back to training on Tuesday and ready to defend our crown.
How do you rate that Edinburgh Accies side, because they really came back at you 3-1 in the second half?
The great side. Look, I think the way they played rugby at the end was a credit. It would have been easy on the eye, but like I say, the character in this squad is unbelievable. But fair play to them. Look, they've got some unbelievable players in that team that really tested us, but we've got some handy players as well.
Well, you lifted the cup for the second year in succession. It might be the last Scottish Cup, we don't know.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep it in the cabinet, but look, whatever happens, it's a special day out there, playing at Murrayfield and in front of friends and family, and just it's amazing. There can be things done to it, if I'm honest. I don't think it's set up the best, but it is what it is. Look, we've won it. I'm over the moon.
Yes, absolutely, and we know that a lot of the other border clubs pulled out because they wanted to concentrate at the Border League, but Hawick wanted to defend that trophy, and you've done it.
Look, fair play to the club. The club put it to the players in pre-season what we wanted to do, and as a group we wanted to defend our trophy. We respect the Border League. That was a massive goal for us because we didn't win it last year. So look, the Border League is a huge competition for us, but we felt we've got the squad and the depth to go in all three, and we've got two in the bag now.
Congratulations, Shawn, to you and the rest of the lads. It was a fantastic final for the crowd to watch, fantastic for us to cover on Rugby Radio, and we'll be with you next weekend for that Premiership final.
Cheers, thank you, brilliant.
And now, beside me, just alongside me here, is a man who has played his last match in Edinburgh Accies colours. That is the man who is Jamie Soule. Jamie, how do you feel?
Obviously disappointed, but I'm really proud of the way the boys stepped up. Probably gave Hawick just a bit too much, and it was just a bit too much to come back, but I mean we went to it for 80 minutes, and that's all we could do, and just wasn't quite enough to get over the line today. But immensely proud, and yeah, it would have been nice to get the fairy tale, but it didn't quite happen today.
You were 17-0 down after 20 minutes. What gave you the impetus to kick on and come back?
I think we've always had that self-belief that we just needed some ball and get a few phases strung together, and we sort of showed that. And as soon as we kind of maybe got a bit flustered in the first kind of 10 minutes, first time in a cup final for I think it's quite a long time.
Since 2007.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean there was always maybe just a bit of bright lights, and the big occasion got got us, but then we realised actually we deserved to be here, and it's not as big an occasion as maybe it's just another game of rugby at the end of the day. And once we got that kind of first 10 minutes out of the way, we kind of got into our stride. Unfortunately, it was just 10 minutes too late, I think.
You certainly gave Hawick a fright towards the end, and 3 points in it is nothing, and it was a classic final.
As I say, they probably built a lead too early, and it was just too much for us to come back. Fair play to Hawick. They've been, the top of the table throughout the year. They probably, if you look at it respectively, they deserved it. They took their opportunities, and maybe we didn't. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think it'll give us a lot of confidence in knowing that we deserve to be at these sort of big occasions. And I wish the boys and all the best for the seasons to come. I'll be enjoying it from the touchline with a beer, I think, instead.
Are there a few tears of regret about having to hang up the boots?
No. Now's the time. I think my wife is due some time with me. We've got a little one as well, and. I've thoroughly enjoyed my career with Accies, and no regrets at all.
Do you think your dad's proud?
I think so. I'd hope so. Apparently, I've equalled his try scoring at Murrayfield today with a massive total of 1. So yeah.
Well, it was a great game to watch. It really was. One team had to win, and from your point of view, sadly, it wasn't your team, but you gave us all a great spectacle tonight under the floodlights of Murrayfield. Well done, and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, and thanks for all you guys do with following the rugby as well.
Jamie Soule, we'll certainly miss him on the rugby pitch. Before that, Shawn Muir, who certainly isn't going to be retiring any time soon. Well, Dale, one-way traffic for the ladies of Watsonians and the women's equivalent, 34 points to 5 in that one.
Yeah, it was obviously one-way traffic. Bruce Miller's Watsonians retaining the Sarah Beanie Cup, and I think they probably started the game showing that they were obviously bearing some scars of losing the Premiership Play-off Final against Stirling County, and it was a game that they were in control of and then ended up losing. So I think Bruce and obviously the team are delighted to get their hands on some silverware. I think they thought it could have been a year they could have won the double, but obviously retaining the Sarah Beanie Cup at Murrayfield's no mean feat. But it was a formidable performance. They were, the best team in pretty much every single aspect of that game, and managed to just brush Hillhead Jordan Hill aside.
The League Cup went to Falkirk by 34-21 against Lasswade, who played most of the match with 14 men after a mad Stephen Hunter moment, unhappy about something, headbutted a Falkirk player, collected a red card, something I'm sure he'll regret, but even to think about it in a cup final on TV was sheer madness, really.
Yeah, I was covering that game for Scottish Rugby, and I was able to actually, sometimes in commentary, it's you miss little bits because you're either following the action or you're trying to explain something else, and I just was able to see it there and then, and just thought, what is he doing? It was a complete rush of blood to the head. There was not a lot of protesting either, and I think the referee done really well because there was not much of an aftermath, because I think I was
going to say, because Falkirk didn't react at all. I mean, there was a little bit of pushing and shoving, but I mean, there are some teams that we know of who would have just crashed right in and it would be a free-for-all, but they held back, and credit for that. Yeah,
I think that maybe shows how much they like their teammate, because he came a clatter and went to the ground. Nobody really rushed in, but I think it was, obviously, I think everybody kind of realised, those that were in the close proximity to that realised that there was only one outcome, and it was unfortunate. The positive things from that as well, though, but Lasswade reacted brilliantly. Obviously took the lead. James Elliott was really, really good, a really experienced player for Lasswade. He, got a try, instrumental on the second try as well, and I think they had to dig deep, and then you lose a big ball carrier. He was playing pretty well, helped nudge Elliott over the line for the first try, and then you take him out of the equation, big ball carrier, and then after that Dale Robertson gets 10 minutes in the bin as well. So 13 men for a lot of that game. There was a bit of parity for 10 minutes of it because Falkirk went down to 14, but I just think Falkirk were too strong. And I did see in the end, though, actually, because I went outside to grab a coffee and happened to see the Falkirk players there, and I spoke to Glenn Faulds because he was really, really helpful. I must say all the clubs were really helpful with information about their players and stuff to showcase at the weekend. So I said thank you to Glenn Faulds, and he was just saying, a bit much with the headbutt. And then somebody sent me the video, so I just happened to show him, and then the Hall, who got headbutted, was saying that a couple of weeks ago he was getting under their skin, he was annoying all the players, so I think he knew something was coming. But ultimately, it was a bit of madness, and Could the game have been closer if he'd stayed on the field? We're never going to know, but I think the reaction from last week deserves a lot of credit.
And they reacted well as well when Dale Robertson was wrongly sent off, because that was rescinded, but against Peebles, of course, at last Wade, and that was very early in the match, and it kind of galvanised the whole team.
Yeah, you could almost argue that there's been 2 red cards, which has perhaps stopped last Wade maybe getting a double this season, but that's just the way that sport goes. As well, referees, you talk about that game against Peebles, referees are allowed to make wrong decisions. It's just fortunate. It's just remarkable that the only game probably that Stephen might play, over the last decade, that there's about 10 cameras on him. He opts to do that. But yeah, obviously I just think that last Wade will look to kind of rebuild and go again next year. But it was really good to see the National Cup. If you take Peebles out of the equation, who didn't compete, they could have went out in the early round, so we don't need to talk about them. But 2 of the best clubs in the competition were competing in the final, which is what you want to see. It might have been a bit different if it was Falkirk versus Allen Glens. Would it be maybe a bit of a mismatch? And obviously Allen Glens would have to try and rise to the occasion again and try and level off the playing field. But it was a good final, really enjoyed it. I thought some of the tries were excellent. I think the skill set on show from teams who are in National 2 shows that there's a lot of quality at that level, and great to see 2 local clubs littered with local players getting a chance to trot out in Murrayfield.
Well, Hugh Brown spoke afterwards with Falkirk captain Harry Russell.
Harry, congratulations, National League Cup winners. How does that feel?
Still hasn't fully sunk in, I don't think. Genuinely amazing. Even the last couple of phases, it sort of feels surreal. You're sort of just you're watching it, and you've got all that build up and emotion. Final whistle goes and it just sort of explodes out of you. But it's brilliant.
But you got the try that effectively sealed the cup, didn't you?
Yeah. Let's go with that. Let's say more of that. A yard out. I've never played out here before, so there's no chance I wasn't going to have a go from a yard out. I do enjoy a little show and go around the base of the ruck, so it's great getting to score.
How many years have you been playing for Falkirk?
Oh, geez, that is a question. I've probably been at Falkirk for 10 plus years potentially now. So yeah, been here a pretty long time.
But this is the first time you played at Murrayfield.
First time I've played at Murrayfield ever, not just with Falkirk, through youth sections and all the rest of it. First time I ever got to run out there.
So what were the nerves like? Because coming up against Peter Wright's last Wade, who are a really, really good side and finished one place above you in the league.
Yeah.
Were you optimistic? Were you nervous? What were you feeling like?
To be honest, that Peter's team in last week, I can't give them enough credit. That was an unbelievable performance with them, especially when you take into account the fact that they were down to 14 men for the majority of that game, and at some points 13. They were so difficult, they were so stuffy, they were defensively I thought they were brilliant, and going forward they were able to make multiple line breaks in that first half. Going into it, we knew it was going to be an incredibly tough battle. We've played them twice already this year. We won one up at Falkirk, they won the most recent one at last Wade, so we knew we were going to have our handful trying to stop the likes of Dale and some of their other big ball carriers, and I think we second half in particular, we got more of our structures right, which allowed us to probably execute a little bit better than we did in the first half.
But the red card was the turning point for the game, wasn't it? When you've got an extra man, that gives you a huge advantage.
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a turning point, because I would still say last Wade were the better team in that first half. I would say that we were potentially able to pull away a little bit in the second half, maybe a little bit of fatigue set in. There were 60 plus minutes with 14 men and 10 minutes with 13. That's a tough shift. It's a big pitch out there, and we've got lots of physical and fit forwards and backs, so we like keeping the ball in field, we like moving it around, and then they ended up with multiple injuries at one time, so credit to them, they stuck in there and they made it a fight all the way to the final minute. But yeah, the red card, I don't know if it galvanised them actually in that first half, because we then I think we might have missed a penalty kick to touch, and I think they went on to score 5 or 6 minutes later, so it galvanised them a little bit, but ultimately we were comfortable sticking with our processes and our structures, and it got us the result.
It's strange because Falkirk's perhaps better known as a football town than a rugby town.
Yeah.
So for the rugby team to pick up a trophy is huge.
Yeah, it's been a brilliant year in Falkirk for sport all round. The football team doing what they've done and us getting a win here. So I mean, yeah, traditionally, like Falkirk Rugby, Falkirk is a footballing town predominantly, but we've actually, you've seen it today in the crowd, we've got a massive minis and middies sections that are coming through. The majority of guys that are playing out there today are Falkirk, like come through the Falkirk youth system. So, and there's a lot of guys that unfortunately missed out on selection today. Again, more Falkirk lads who are pretty much ready to step up and start playing senior rugby as of next year. So it's really exciting to be part of the club at Falkirk at this point in time.
I've got to mention brother Finn.
Yeah.
I mean, he will be absolutely over the moon for you, won't he?
Yeah, he will be. I was messaging him a bit today. He actually sorted me out with a new pair of boots, but I didn't end up wearing them. They were like not worn in enough. I gave them a crack in the warm-up, but they weren't quite ready, and I wasn't going to take that risk with blisters and all the rest of it. But yeah, I've been messaging Finn a bit this week about it, and getting even if it's just a tiny sense of what he and the rest of the boys must feel run onto this pitch in front of 60,000 folk for Murrayfield. It must be unbelievable, as even with the crowd that we had, it makes the hairs on your neck, back of your neck stand up. So yeah, slightly jealous of what that must be like, although I don't know if my nerves could handle that.
Well, it was a fantastic day for you and the lads from Falkirk. Congratulations. Enjoy tonight, enjoy the trophy, because it is a very special day for you.
Thank you very much.
Harry Russell. Lots of chat going on now about the Silver Saturday and the Cup and what will happen in the future. A lot of people really not happy at a lot of aspects of the competition, from teams withdrawing to late kick-off times for the showpiece event, to grab and go snack bags handed out at the end to the players instead of anything really special, and even the trophy being handed over on the pitch instead of at the top of the steps, which was a bit unusual for the showpiece final. There's certainly going to be an inquest on all of those things.
Yeah, I haven't heard about the grab and go bags. I wish I knew about that. I did particularly
grabbed and gone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I did particularly like the macaroni pies that were in the Bill McLaren suite. But I think it improved from last year. We sat here, well, maybe not exactly here, but we did have discussions last year about Silver Saturday and how it went, and I thought it wasn't that great. The final was a good game. The weather maybe spoiled it slightly, but I think there's been a stark improvement this year on Silver Saturday. The quality was a lot better on the field. I thought it was a good occasion. I think those little teething issues about whether it's presented up the steps or on the field, it was a bit strange because you probably need a bit of consistency. But I was looking on and watching Hawick from where we were standing and start looking at the pictures and photos after. I think that looks almost a little bit, with the night sky on the pitch, you don't really see much of the crowd, or obviously there wouldn't be a crowd on that far side. So I just think some things like that are little teething issues. If clubs want to go up the steps, then obviously that's something that they should all be kind of clambering before. The team manager should be doing it before the tournament. We all want to go up the steps, we all have a consensus, whatever. But ultimately, I know there was conversation about will it be in its place next year. It has to be in some form, I think. And for the reason is there is not really an occasion on the calendar now with the dilution of sevens, and there is the inter-district, which is great, but there's not a date in the calendar where you have teams collectively getting together, from ball boys and mascots all the way up to presidents, where all the clubs can get together in one location and celebrate and achieve a bit of success as well. There's loads of clubs that hang their hat on, we won the Shield 25 years ago, we won the Cup 20 years ago or whatever. If you take that away, you're losing a huge part of what grassroots rugby is all about. And it was a celebration, and you can kind of look on and watch it. If you, especially me, I'm fortunate enough that I was able to commentate on 3 of the games out of 4. You're watching on, covering teams that you never cover. But I think the last week Falkirk was the best attended game. That whole week, and I wasn't in Hive, but that was such a big backing for those two sides, and it wasn't the showpiece. So you take that away, you're not giving those clubs that opportunity to go to Murrayfield and back their team and feel that little bit of professionalism that they might never ever experience. So yeah, there's a lot of chat about little things they could do better, and there no doubt can be, but I think that needs to remain in the calendar. It needs sorted out in terms of the fixtures with teams withdrawn. That was a big Achilles heel to the competition, but it needs to be there in some way, shape or form to allow these clubs to celebrate.
Yep, totally agree with that, I must admit. Now, staying with last week, and the Langholm Sevens completed round 6 of the Kings of the Sevens, and that was won by Gala, who have reduced the gap on Kelso now to 10 points, and we have 5 teams still in with a chance of the trophy. There's obviously Gala, Melrose, Jedforest, Selkirk and Kelso. Now the table with 40 points still available potentially has Kelso at the top with 40, Gala 30, Melrose 25, Selkirk 22, Jedforest 15 and Peebles have 12 with Watsonian, Edinburgh Accies, Hawick and Currie at the bottom end of the table. Now Robin Purdy had a word with the player of the tournament last week, Ben Gill of Gala, and also to Melrose's Struan Hutchison.
Just came up short today, but handy 7 points in the Kings nonetheless.
Came up short in that final. We just spoke at the end there. We probably kind of played into Gala's game, we felt. They're obviously a physical 7 and they try and umbrella you in, and we probably just went away from our attacking principles, got a little bit flat, kind of got hit men and ball. There was a couple 2-on-1s that we left out there. So look, it's tough to take that final, but as you say, 7 valuable points in the overall Kings of 7 standing. So we're making progress a little bit, so week to week.
And you guys only had one pool game. Was that a help or a hindrance?
It's like, I think someone said the other week, you only can play what's in front of you. So obviously we had Langholm and the Presidents with the Presidents not fielding a team. So we played Langholm first up, and then we had a bit of a kind of longer layover. So we did a bit of a blow, tried to get some running in the legs before that semi-final against Jed. So look, it's up and it's down, but like that's not the reason why we've lost that final there. You know, there's inaccuracies in that. So.
And looking forward from here, Struan, particularly to next weekend, you yourself called it moving weekend. There's a couple of tournaments, Kelso and Earlston. You guys will be looking to go deep in both of those.
100%, yeah. Look, so yeah, as I said the other week, moving weekend. If you can pick up some decent points at both Kelso and Earlston, as I said, you do find yourself right in the mix going into Selkirk and Jed. So, but on the other end of the spectrum, we're well aware that if we don't pick up points, you can be out of it before you've even gone to Selkirk. So it's week by week, it's tie by tie, tournament by tournament. So Bruce Colvin there at the end just said the first focus is Kelso pool game 1. And then it's pool game 2. So yeah, but we've got to focus game by game, moment by moment in those ties. Otherwise, you do come up short, like unfortunately we have done today. So we'll see where we get to next week, and if we're in the mix going into Selkirk.
You'll be feeling you can put a dent in that 15-point deficit, I would imagine.
Yeah, hopefully. Look, it's 15 points. It's kind of didn't realise the standing score is there, but look, we'll try and chase them down. It's obviously their Sevens next weekend, so they're going to be gunning for that. I'm sure they'll try and put on a show at their own Sevens and try and get deep into that tournament, and no doubt try and back up at Earlston. So we'll keep chipping away, tie by tie, as I said. Try and pick up as many points as we can at each tournament, and look, we'll give it our best shot. We'll try and chase them down, but we might run out of time, we might run out of tournaments, we'll see.
So Ben, congratulations first of all. You leave here with the Sevens trophy obviously, but also 5 tries, player of the tournament. Overall a decent afternoon's work.
Not too bad, isn't it? Just really proud of the boys, to be honest. That was I personally don't think there was any standouts today. We all, we rotated well, and everyone just put in like as hard a work as they can, and it showed.
In recent weeks, you've struck me as a squad with an incredible work rate. It really does look like you're pulling for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've said it before, like before the 7th season started, like we're not going to be the fastest, we're not going to be like the strongest in some of the teams, but the dog that we have, like the hard work, the work rate, like just the drive to try and win, like that's what we've all got, and we all want to work for each other. And it shows today. It showed last week. This Saturday Sunday double header, we played 7 games, and you could see like we were just all fighting for each other, and I think this was coming. So I'm really happy for everyone.
Looking forward, as I said to Struan as well, you're up to 30 points now in the Kings. You're 10 behind Kelso. There's 2 tournaments next weekend again. You're going to need to go back to back, but there's still an awful lot to play for you guys.
To play for, yeah. We're just going to obviously take it day at a time and just try and keep doing what we're doing. Just keep working for each other, winning those last ditch tackles, and just getting that last offload, you know, like that's the things that win you games, and we're just going to keep working and driving. Go back to training on Tuesday and let's go, ready for it.
So the circus rolls on to Kelso on Saturday and Earlston on Sunday. So traditionally the weekend where it will sort out the wheat from the chaff. Let's have a look at what's happening at Kelso first of all. That's a pool system. Selkirk, the GAC charity Sevens, and South District Union will be in Pool A. In Pool B, it's Kelso, Berwick and Watsonians. Pool C, Gala, Heriots and Edinburgh Accies. And Pool D, Melrose, Peebles and Jedforest. Whilst on Sunday, it's a knockout competition. Starting at 1 o'clock, it's Gala against Muir, then Selkirk v Jedforest, Berwick versus Edinburgh Accies, Earlston against the Old Stars, more on that in a second, GAC Sevens versus Heriots, Kelso against Edinburgh University, Durham University, the holders, against Peebles, and Melrose versus Watsonians. So I mentioned the Old Stars. Now they're featuring members of the Scotland Sevens squad who famously won a World Series leg at Twickenham, featuring the likes of Lee Jones, Mark Robertson, and of course Captain Scott Wight. And earlier I had a word with Scott. Scott, a lot of people are quite surprised you're going back on the pitch again.
Daft, you may say, Stuart. Daft.
You just can't let it go, can you?
Well, it was we kind of spoke about over kind of Christmas time, myself and Mark Robertson, just obviously saying how good it would be to potentially get back out in the pitch, and it's come sooner than we thought.
You all agreed to that?
Well, me and Mark had spoke about it, and then obviously there was nothing really kind of in the plan, if you like, and nothing organised. And to be honest, it all came about. Mark Stewart from Earlston Sevens convener phoned me to ask to actually speak in hospitality, and conversations took a slight twist. I said that we could maybe offer up a couple of oldies and enter a team. And
did you bite your hand off?
Well, no. A couple of weeks later, he came back and said, I think it'll be a great idea. So, here we are, trying to put a squad together for Earlston.
It was a tremendous day for you all, and Mark Robertson was involved, Lee Jones involved, yourself of course. Who else are you going to be able to persuade from that lot?
Look, it was brilliant, and it's days like that you'll never forget. So there's the three of us that are obviously confirmed, and there's another few boys confirmed behind that. So Scott Riddle, James Johnston and James Fleming will take part in it. So that's us up to 6, and then we're kind of still, the last 4, there's obviously a couple of boys there in terms of in the mix and stuff, but not fully 100% yet. So there is a reserve list, and there's obviously a couple of things, just obviously there's still a few boys potentially playing as well that were involved in that day as well. So we're just making sure that everybody's going to be available, but the 6 of us we're in.
And what's the name of the team?
We're the Old Stars.
Old Stars. Very, very good. What colour will we be playing in?
We're going blue and yellow tartan.
Oh, right.
And we've been kindly supported by Fjortus as the main sponsors.
Because a lot of people watching now will think, oh, well, you're just going to walk the Earlston Sevens. But tell me what the difference is like between something that happened 7 years ago without any training and now jumping back in again.
I'll tell you after Sunday how sore I am. To be honest, look, there's always the majority of us are obviously kind of ticking over, but as you say, nothing can really replicate on the pitch. I don't know what to expect, to be honest. It's rugby, you say it's like riding a bike, but then obviously you can run up and down the pitch as much as you want, but as soon as you add contact in, and I dare say there'll probably be a few folk wanting a wee cheap shot at us as well. So
I was going to say, that's very tempting, isn't
it? It's all fun and all part of it, and we know what we're signing up to at the end of the day. We're entering into a male sevens competition, so we know what to expect, but I don't know. Hopefully we manage to survive. It might be one game, it might be 2 games. Who knows where it goes?
But I know one thing is, from obviously working with you at the Coast to Coast thing for the Doddy Weir Foundation and everything else, that was a fantastic event, and you really, put a lot of work into that behind the scenes.
Yeah, look, and that's, we knew that wasn't going to be easy in terms of coast to coast, 24 hours of continual work. And it's similar, and look, I'm not saying that I'm not going to do anything before I turn up to Earlston, and of course I'm going to have to run about, but I'll definitely not be playing before it. And nothing can mimic, obviously, the live thing. So, I dare say when it gets to the day, it's going to definitely be tougher than certainly what I've been preparing for in terms of, I'll be run fit, but definitely won't be contact fit, but then there'll be a lot of people who'll say you were never contact fit, Scott, anyway. So
lots of kicking, lots of passing.
Maybe not kicking. I think the idea of the day is try and keep hold of the ball. Lots of passing, but I know. Look, we'll have to try and keep a hold of it for many phases to make obviously the day easier. It's a lot easier to attack than defend in sevens. So we'll be looking to obviously probably minimise contact, keep the ball alive, and I hopefully keep a hold of it for phases.
But it's a few weeks on since you actually made that decision. No regrets?
Well, time will tell.
When are you training?
I jump in and now and again in the odd session here. Obviously, just keep ticking along in terms of doing my kind of own stuff, running and stuff. So, but look, it's mainly running. Just as long as we can run and stay fit, that's really all I've done.
So Dale, he's got the band back together again, as Scott. Do you think they'll run away with it, or will 7 years away from rugby prove just a little bit too difficult?
I think it's hard to say. I think it's a brilliant, and this is no disrespect to Earlston, but it's a brilliant opening round. I think that they could potentially progress pretty well through to the semis to face a side who have already won on the Kings of the Sevens this season or been there or thereabouts. Obviously, Edinburgh Accies haven't yet, but yeah, it'll be difficult to tell. But you think about players in there like James Johnson as well, like Lee Jones, he's still in tremendous shape, and although there's a bit of a gap, there's still ex-professional players coming back into an amateur environment. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. You've got to talk about them as being one of the favourites, but when they're playing some of these teams that perhaps have a little bit more legs, a little bit more conditioning, perhaps over the last kind of few weeks in Sevens, that might be the difference. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen Old Stars, say for example, Old Stars against Durham University in the final, and it might just be the legs that get Durham over the line to go back to back. So it's nice to see, though. I think that between the two tournaments this weekend, having different invitational sides in there, it does raise those questions, because you don't know what they're going to be like against Earlston. You don't know what they're going to be like against potentially Edinburgh Accies or Berwick if they get through the round. So yeah, I think that's it's an interesting component as well. And you think about the Kelso tournament, South District, we don't know what the makeup of that team's going to be like, what it's going to look, how good they're going to be, especially alongside JAC Sevens in that same pool. So a couple of invitational teams this weekend to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and from a commercial aspect, it's going to be wonders for Earlston Sevens ticket sales, you would think.
Yeah, obviously Scott Wight did put a little bit out, and I think those fans and the connections to that team will be interested in going to Earlston Sevens. The one thing I do think, out of probably all of the Kings of the Sevens at the moment, Earlston's always been in quite a good spot. It's got the bank holiday weekend. It's always a great weekend at Earlston. So, to get a few more people through the gate would be great for the club. I would imagine that there will be probably, a few more people interested, because it's a new story. And I think that we talk about Kings of the Sevens, you're kind of rinsing and repeating every single weekend. And is there much exciting about it at the moment? For me, probably not. But having this inclusion just, puts a little bit of a sprinkle on it and goes, well, this is an interesting, dynamic to this tournament. So people, that want to see how that's going to culminate should be getting down on Sunday.
Of course, this Saturday at 2 o'clock, it's the Premiership Play-off Final, which finally gets played after over 2 months, would you believe? Of course, all the other leagues in Scottish Club Rugby have given out trophies for finishing top of the table ages ago, but now the 18 matches played in the Premiership means jack, because it's all down to who wins a one-off game, and of course you absolutely can't wait, because you love it.
I do. I really enjoy the playoffs, and yeah, it is. It's that one game. It's that opportunity that adds a different narrative to the fixture and to the Premiership. And I think my kind of stance on it is still the same. The teams at the beginning of the season understand what the remit is. People build towards that. Currie, Marr and Hawick have all been afforded a blip this season, and they've came out at the other end to get into the positions that they have. So obviously Hawick, the best of the teams, have been able to get the advantage and get that home playoff semi and then the playoff final as well. The playoff semi between Hawick and Kelso was a brilliant occasion, really well attended at Mansfield Park. I think the atmosphere was terrific. The Kelso spectators that came across made it a really, really good atmosphere. It then culminates in this. The one thing that I do agree with you on is the duration of the length of playing this game is ridiculous, but that's the whole thing with Scottish Rugby at the moment. We're talking about Kelso Sevens, but we're also talking about the playoff final. We're also talking about the Southern Knights that are going to be playing. Like, who are you meant to support? Where are you meant to go on a Saturday to try and get all this rugby in? So there's loads of things at the moment with domestic rugby that needs addressed. But for me, the playoff system that we've got at the moment, it makes me really interested, because we come to that game and Currie could potentially, going in as underdogs, nobody's going in with Currie's favourites, could potentially be the champions. And it's happened before, and it could happen again. Last year's final was a great occasion as well. Ronan McKean, you still talk about it time and time, and it gives you gives you those moments. So, and that's what it does. It does give you those. And I do know that there's a chance that once every decade there might be a moment in the Premiership. There might be a moment at the top of the table, but those are few and far between. It means you're guaranteed for a big game every year at the end, and it's nailed on.
Stirling Wolves, of course, finished fourth, and they're the champions of the Super Series.
Yeah, and Stirling County women were exactly the same in the Premiership. So
it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, it does happen, but then that's the way that it is. It's
and they all vote for it. I mean, it's we all know. I mean, turkeys won't vote for Christmas. The clubs, if they've got a 4-1 chance of becoming Scottish champions through the back door, then they're going to vote for it. So it's not going to change until someone actually says, "Look, come on, let's play the game fair."
But I don't speak to enough people because you lock me in this room for about 8 months of the year, but I don't know what the appetite is for it in terms of having those playoffs or having it as a regular league campaign. Again, I do like the playoff system, but you go back to the Wolves game. I was there for the semi-final against Heriots, and they played a completely different game to what I'd seen them for the rest of the season. And they were able to play a bit of cup rugby. You probably see that's when the best squads and the best coaches come to prepare their team to go, we need as a club to get in this position to allow us to win the championship. And it's just a different way of winning a league. But you probably try and pigeonhole it and say, well, that's cup rugby and that's league rugby. It's just the way that sport goes, and trying to condition a team and trying to prepare a team to go into these big games. Sometimes teams crumble as well. Like some teams can't carry the tag of being heavy favourites, and yeah, it's just a different way to skin a cat. But I still will never agree, Stuart. You'll take this to the grave.
I certainly will. And it will be a great occasion, I'm sure, because it was last time, and the Kelso Hawick one, fantastic and everything else. But I'll never buy into it as a way of crowning a team Scottish champions. That's my main problem. If Currie had finished top of the table, or Marr, or Kelso, I would not have a problem calling them champions, because over 18 tough matches over several months, they would have deserved it. And that should, for me, be the only way to decide who the champions of Scotland are.
So going into next year, let's sit where we are. The Cup, good, bad or indifferent, what do you think about it just now?
What, the Cup?
The Cup going into next season.
It needs major surgery.
So it needs major surgery,
yeah.
Okay? So then say, for example, the Cup needs major surgery, but we're going to revert back to a regular Premiership campaign. Where's your showcase on rugby? Where's your big games? Now, to grow you have to...
two showcases. I mean, basically, the Cup gets elevated because it needs the big change that it could get by seeding the leagues.
Like, there's not going to be wholesale change going into next year with the changes that are coming. So that's where you get your showcase and your shining light on club rugby at the top. It was like, again, you caught me cold with that question last week in terms of why is the men's cup final not being on BBC Alba, but it's because we have so many different options of rugby to watch in the men's sport. Club rugby has got a really narrow, limited window of elevating itself to being interesting for an impartial, neutral spectator. This is the opportunity, because nobody's going to tune in for, say, for example, Hawick versus Musselburgh, 15 games into the season. If Hawick win, they win the championship and the rest of the league's a bogey, because nobody's wanting that. So in order to grow the game, to inspire people who are out with those clubs as well, you need to get it in front of their eyes, and that's what the play-off does. The play-off gives you that opportunity to shine a light on these amateur players, to grow these clubs, grow those communities, nudge it into the spotlight. In an atmosphere that is completely dwarfed with professional and semi-professional sport, it's probably the chance that they've went, right, let's alienate this game and let's put it at the focus.
But of course, if you seeded the league so that first plays 8th and second place 7th, that means you're not going to get any dead rubbers at the end of the season. As far as that's concerned, there's still something to play for, and it means that you all go into the Premiership Cup, the National 1 Cup, the National 2 Cup, and then you've got a 5-1 chance of all the clubs right the way down the divisions having a chance of playing on the hallowed turf of Murrayfield.
And I don't disagree with that. And I do not disagree with the fact that if you change the system, it could work. I'm talking, but in the current system that we have, you know what change is like in Scottish rugby. It does not happen quickly, and it only happens quickly when something is either working really well or it's working horrifically. So, if things are ticking along, which clubs have always done, clubs are self-sustainable. They prop up the game in the country by just managing themselves mostly. Yes, there's guidance from Scottish Rugby and there's support, and there's the kind of pathways and the academies and what have you. But ultimately, it's the people who go behind the bars. It's people who are going to the clubhouses that are sustaining that game, and we need something to make sure that we can hang our hat on it. And that's what the playoffs does just now. If we're sitting in this position and looking forward 12 months, it's more realistic that we're going to be able to have a showcase in a playoff final than revamp the cup. Now, the cup, for me, and I've always said it, the cup for me was the one thing that inspired me as a young rugby player. Watching it on TV, in extra time, watching these big games, big crowd, that's what made me want to be a rugby player.
Yeah, but that's when the cup is working.
Yeah, but we're talking 25 years ago.
Absolutely. But it can still be, with the new setup, it could actually come so that the cup does become the important big match that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I agree with. I'm just saying in that timescale that we've got, we've came so far in the last quarter of a century through professionalism into the area that we are now, where we're trying to find a semi-professional level and find the pathway for our players. That's going to settle, or need to settle, long before we worry about where we can revise that cup. Because if we don't get that level and settle it, then our national game will suffer, which is the thing that Scottish Rugby is there for, isn't it? Is to make sure that we've got a successful national team. So that is why club rugby will probably stagnate for the next 5 years until it levels out, and then hopefully there's a bit of a chance to maybe address it, look at getting that cup and the importance of it back. But then we're talking 30 years down the line, and you've came through so much change in Scottish rugby. The cup is the one thing, well, one of many things that suffered. The cup suffered, Border League suffered, Kings of the Sevens has suffered, and here we are.
But of course, you've got to look forward to what's going to happen, and obviously we've got the 12-team league in the Premiership, which might stop the playoffs, we don't know, happening anyway. But I think, getting the cup back there as the focal point to replace the playoffs, I mean, effectively you're taking the essence of the playoffs, but you're crowning the champions in the right way, the team that finishes at the top of the league, and then you have your separate competition, which it's basically the cup instead of the playoff. That's the way to do it, I think.
Totally agree. I do. I think that in time, that if there's a bit of distance and there's a chance to do it, then there should be a progressive way forward for club rugby, and the club should all agree on it. You've got 4 districts that can't agree on a date. So, we've got 50 clubs in national rugby, so that's going to be the challenge, is making sure that they all agree. And then of those 50 clubs, you're going to have a bit of interchange over the next 3, 4, 5 years anyway. So it's getting the agreement, it's getting the right message, and it's probably somebody actually taking a little bit of leadership to say, to grow our game and to protect club rugby and make sure that we're having a viable game that's going to grow and have a little bit of interest from out with that might generate some money or some income. This is the way forward, because at the moment everybody's just kind of looking around trying to find a little bit of leadership, and then probably looking upstairs and going, oh, it's SRU's fault. A lot of it is, but there is a little bit of responsibility on the clubs to go, do you know what, this is where we should be travelling. So there is a lot of change needed, and it's probably until you start speaking about it that you realise we're probably in quite an ominous position at the moment in club rugby, but it probably is going to take a little bit of ownership from the clubs.
Well, there's some things that I think can't be solved. One is Kings of the Sevens. I've got no idea how to solve that one, but this one, I really do believe that it can be, because you're ticking the boxes, you're making competitive matches right to the end, you're crowning the champions for the team at the very top of the table, you're giving all clubs, all 50 clubs, right the way down to Division 4, the opportunity to have a 5-1 chance of playing at Murrayfield. You get a Silver Saturday, which basically has, you could have the men's on the Saturday, the women's on the Sunday, and have the 5 games back to back, and it would be absolutely tremendous leading up to that showcase final. But we will see what happens.
Yeah, I do agree. There's a lot needing done in club rugby at the moment. Appetites change, things change. We've been, the clubs have went through the mill over the last 30 years. It was our club game was in a great spot, probably, around about the 90s and before then. But now we're in a challenging position, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see the changes that come about. And some things are going to have to go. Some things are probably going to have to fall, or some things are going to have to be changed or adapted. And that's where you've got to embrace the playoffs, Stuart. Go with change.
No, I won't. Sorry, I can't do that. But the problem is that, the clubs won't until they find an alternative, which I think that is, which means you get the best of the playoffs. You also revive the cup and put it back to where it should be. And I'm pretty sure that, if there was that format happening, you would get a fantastic Scottish Cup final, tremendous day. And you just tick all the boxes because, as I said, the champions of Scotland would be the team that's finished at the top of the league. you don't have any dead rubbers, and there's more potential money for the clubs as well, because you have those 3 extra games in the playoff. So anyway, check it out. It's on Offside Line. It's a year old now, but it's still there. And my thanks to David Barnes for putting it back in the spotlight again with his excellent article about Silver Saturday. But anyway, shall we talk about the match now?
That would be handy, yeah.
Currie, of course, will be pretty fresh, plotting the downfall of a team that still hasn't been beaten at home since October 2019. Hawick, they'll need to have to recover pretty quickly from a huge physical effort 7 days before.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where the challenge is even trying to identify what's better. Is it better coming through that challenging game against Edinburgh Accies? Now, I'm led to believe there's not many knocks and bumps. I think there'll be sore bodies. It was a brilliant game on Saturday at Murrayfield, but obviously Hawick have to kind of recharge and prepare in a narrow window again, and Currie have had a little bit of time to evaluate probably where they went wrong in that loss in the semi-final at the weekend of Melrose Sevens against Hawick, and look how they're going to approach this game. And I think what's better? Is it better being kept in cold storage for a little bit longer, or is it better being out in the field and just getting in your rhythms again? So I don't know the answer, but it's going to be an interesting dynamic to the game. But Currie come down as underdogs. They're not the favourites for this game for various reasons. They've been beaten twice by Hawick already this season. They were beaten in last year's final. They were beaten in the final the year before that as well. They've just been beaten in the semi-final by Hawick again in the cup. So if anybody says Currie coming into this as favourites, well, they're going to have to come up with a lot of evidence to convince me. However, that's where the jeopardy of the semi-final, the play-off final comes in. And last year, Currie approached the game perfectly up until probably that last minute where the Hawick were able to exert some pressure. They played the game in the right areas, they kicked well, they squeezed well, they defended well, they lived on the edge, they didn't concede a lot of penalties. When they started tiring towards the end, because it's a really attritional game against Hawick, they probably started to slip a little bit in their physicality. So, it was a great final last year, but Currie have probably had a little bit more time to prepare mentally than what Hawick have. Now, that might be the difference, but Hawick, if they're able to come through last weekend with a full fit squad, they get a good preparation in this week, then they'll be raring to go and they'll be conditioned, they'll be ready. And Currie will be, looking probably to win a battle up top in terms of, winning that game battle, that mind battle between the two sides. So, yeah, I think it's set up to be an intriguing game. I was asked for a prediction elsewhere, and I did say 19-12 to Hawick, so I do think it's going to be a tight game. I think there'll be a couple of tries in it, but don't be surprised if you're seeing the likes of Ford, Brett, and Forbes, Lee Armstrong as well, all kicking to the corners and trying to just win that territorial battle. I think it's going to be a real chess match on Saturday.
Well, another pretty packed programme today. We're on air Saturday and Sunday on Rugby Radio. You can tune in at rugbyradio.co.uk as usual. Very simple. Press a button, you're there. We start at 1:30 on Saturday with the Kelso Sevens and the Premiership Play-off Final. Full commentary from Mansfield Park. And remember, it's a 2 o'clock kick-off in that one. We'll be back in plenty of time for the closing stages of the Kelso Sevens at Poynder Park. Then on Sunday from 2 o'clock, we'll be on air live from the Hawk for the Earlston Sevens. And we're all intrigued to see how the old stars are going to get on. Will they walk away with it, or will their bodies crumble and let them down? One way to find out. Tune in then. But for now, from Dale and me, bye-bye.